everybody. Welcome. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. Today on Dat Fury Radio, joined by Cory Kibler. What's up, Cory?
Hey, Howard.
And friend of the show, Rob Spectre. What's going on, Rob?
What's shaking, y'all?
We're continuing to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Mr. Furious Records, our label, along with many of our friends. Started in September of 2004, so...
2004?
2004. It was real. It happened.
20 years? Oh. Are we that old?
Yeah.
Are we that old?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that makes me feel good about having this conversation, that we're talking about a record label that's over 20 years old, is Paul McCartney is playing a venue a stone's throw away from my house right now. And the early reviews are that it sounds like shit over there.
Oh, no. Poor Paul.
Turns out, doing rock and roll when you're 80 or whatever isn't really working out. A lot of people are not stoked.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I don't expect to be playing rock and roll when I'm 80. I mean, acoustic maybe, synthesizer maybe, sure, that'd be great, but yeah, I don't expect to be pulling off electrified rock and roll.
Well, I don't think he's pulling it off either, from what it sounds like. The early text, I have a couple friends that are at the show, and they're just like, "Oh my god, this is." One person texted and said they haven't been this disappointed since the first Biden debate last year.
Ooh, that's just layering it on.
They're just you're too old. You're too old to be doing this.
What's the venue?
The Bowery Ballroom, which is
neat,
ridiculous. It's my favorite room of all time. My absolute all-time favorite venue. And it's very small, so to have, a Beatle playing there is like a massive, massive deal.
That's cool.
The entire neighborhood has been buzzing all afternoon. Like everyone I know has been asking me, like, do you have tickets? Do you know anyone who has tickets? Like the entire neighborhood is vibrating at a different level than I've seen in a long time. So
it's crazy. Are you in Brooklyn?
I'm in Manhattan. I'm in the Bowery.
You're in Manhattan? You are? No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm going to send my drone to your house right now.
Oh, please
Check
do.
It out. Yeah.
Mysteriously, they all disappeared. I don't know where they've been. Like, they were here for 2 months, and then now they're gone.
Been saving them up for tonight.
Well, speaking of tonight, let me set the stage a little bit. This is part 3 in a 6-part series. Listening to the Mr. Furious Records compilation, Mr. Signal, which you can check out at mrfuriousrecords.bandcamp.com. Parts 1 and 2 are in the back catalog. We are picking up today roughly in 2008, and we'll go roughly through 2011. A little bit of fuzziness on the edges, but that is basically the era. And we're going to start off with a acoustic song of mine, a solo version of the Howie and Scott tune Major and Minor, which appeared on the Songs of H compilation that I did as a fundraiser for a couple of different things. It was there were like, I think 3 unique songs to that compilation, and everything else was pulled from existing releases in my catalog. And Rob, we talked before. You kind of helped me pick songs for that, right? Do you want to say anything about that?
Well, I always loved when Science and Comets first came out, and we were playing shows all the time, and I was always struck how your set list was like dominated by Signs, like most of the time, but my favorite songs were on Comets, and by far my favorite tune on Comets was Major and Minor, and I just felt the lyricism and the riff I just absolutely adored. And so when you ask me, for suggestions from Songs of H, or what you would like to you would like to have on the record, I was like, God, just please, I would love an acoustic version of Major and Minor. That would be super dope.
Oh, cool. I forgot that you requested the acoustic version specifically, but
yeah,
that's awesome. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think you played a version of this. We were doing a basement show at a friend of mine's apartment, and it was the first time I heard you do this acoustically, and it might have been the first time I heard the song. And
was that the? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was the one where my buddy Hobbs brought a crap ton of extremely high freshmen. And we ended up playing Happy Happy Joy Joy and absolutely freaked them out.
And they had the tiered, the couch was up on a riser.
Yeah.
So there was a two-tiered seating in the apartment.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. Stadium seating was big at Hastings at that time. But yeah, my buddy brought some extremely high freshmen. Everyone was clearly on the beginning of their journey with recreational marijuana, and I turned to you and I said, do you remember Happy Happy Joy Joy by Ren and Stimpy? And you were like, kind of. I'm like, let's play it. And totally bummed out the crowd. They were completely freaking out. One gal kept batting at her ears. She was like, no.
Get the sound waves away.
Another guy was like, no, man. No. I think that night was the first time I heard you play this acoustically, which this was well before it was ever recorded. And I'm like, that's a good tune. That's a good song.
The main thing I recall from this Songs of H is that I think you got the CD duplicated at Home Depot or something. You were you were telling me I got them.
Well known
got
for
them
CD duplication
Depot.
services.
And you were like, it was a good deal. They got it to me fast or whatever.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember where I got them duplicated. I did just get a spindle of discs because Tim Gillespie helped me design an origami case. So we just printed two-sided paper and folded it up a certain way, and the disc slipped in. And there was a page of notes as well that got folded and put in the other pocket. So there's this handmade, hand-numbered case.
Eek Discord right there.
Yeah. I have this arrangement written down somewhere in my binders full of songs because I rearranged the Howie and Scott version is power chords, and I rearranged this for open chords mostly, which befits the solo acoustic thing.
Was this one of your jobs where you had the capo on the top 5 strings, but you left the bottom string off?
I don't think so. Yeah. There were a couple of those.
Kind of sounds like it, but might be wrong.
Wait, you took off one of the strings? What happened?
No,
I used a capo, but I would slide it toward the treble strings so that the low E and sometimes the low E and A would stay open all the way down to the nut.
Oh, down to the nut.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone do that before or since.
I should have invested in a banjo capo or something. It was kind of rickety, and if you looked at the capo wrong, it would slip off because it wasn't gripping properly. The curve wasn't right at the back of the neck, but it worked if you were gentle. I remember. Speak of my Andy Action tribute stars, my cover of Sugar and Candy by Two Skinny Jays used that technique.
So good. I play your cover of Sugar and Candy all the time. Like,
good.
Still, it's so much fun.
And on to a song of Rob's.
Indeed.
Handsome Backpacks off A Life Without Fireflies.
So, Howie, do you want to talk about how you picked each track for each release on Mr. Signal?
Yeah, pretty unscientific. I'm looking for bangers, basically. I'm looking for shorter songs, typically. I'm thinking about... I'm balancing, what's a banger versus what represents the album. And sometimes I go one way or the other. It tends to be songs early in the track list, if only because the selections were made fairly quickly.
Yeah.
The first modern Bandcamp version of Mr. Signal. So Mr. Signal on the old Mr. Furious website was like a recommendation thing of other bands, not on the label. And then there was a XML playlist that wasn't necessarily restricted to one Mr. Furious song per release, but would pull MP3s in from the Internet Archive and play them in a playlist. But for the Bandcamp version of Mr. Signal with this concept, I was doing it for one specific friend, who was a friend I made at work and had like no background on any of my music whatsoever. And so I started with the newest Mr. Furious release at the time, and just in like an afternoon picked tracks. I went back as far as I could. I got, maybe 25 or 30 songs deep. And so that forms the block of like from catalog number maybe 65 back to 40 or 35, which we're going to be kind of in, I guess.
We'll approach it. I don't think we get all the way there, but yeah.
Okay. But yeah, and as I've added over time, going in both directions, kind of the same concept. And if anyone doesn't like their pick, I can switch it out.
I think it's your discretion as the label owner. Cory, you were saying something.
I was wondering where you recorded this.
Well, that's the funny bit about MFR 25 is that it was contemporaneous with MFR 1.
Yeah, earlier.
Yeah, was it earlier than MFR 1?
It was a year ahead because you were a year ahead of us in college.
That's true. I wanted to say, well, I had played a bunch of shows with Shacker at that point, but I don't know if the first record had come out at that point or not. But
it would kind of be contemporaneous with Shacker's Knowing Her Best, the first Shacker record.
Yeah, the very first record.
As far as recording goes.
Yeah, it was close, but it might have been before, and then didn't get released until 2008.
Yeah.
How he likes to call it, it was the Chinese democracy of Mr. Furious Records.
Much more successful by some measures.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I had a better drummer.
Well, I will link to. We need to talk about the sleepover now, but I will link to the episode of the Long Play Listening Party where we go over Fireflies in extreme detail. That's a fun one. Cory, tell us about the sleepover.
Oh, man. So, after Robot Creep Closer, my previous band broke up. Jamie and I, Jamie was also in Shacker with me and Howie, we wanted to start a new band that, and it's awesome to see how he's evolved too. Like he rips. But he and I wanted to start a new band with some new people and just see how it went. So we met up with Greg Joyce, who was in Strawberry Burns, and then Jarek Olivetti, who was in Crush the Clown. Both of them were in Crush the Clown, Greg and Jarek, and then Jarek was in a few other bands. And
Crush the Clown, a legendary Lincoln band.
Super legendary.
I think we were. Did they open for Blacklight Sunshine one time at a show we were at?
I'm sure they played together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Crush the Clown slays, led by a guy named Nick Westra. But we got together, and I remember the first practice. We all brought a few songs that we'd written just to see if it was going to mesh, and it meshed pretty well right away. And this was, we recorded some very early songs in Greg's basement at his old place. He recorded it. Pretty sure Howie mastered it, right? And this one,
I don't remember.
I'm positive you did.
Okay.
But this song is called, I think it's called A Bag with a Money Sign on it.
Yes.
But this is super early sleepover. Oh, no. I've been lying this whole time. I was talking about the band demos. I'm a jackass. The sleepover. No. Wait, this is early sleepover. That was me, Brock Beckman,
Brock,
Jamie,
that's
and
it.
A rotating cast of characters, eventually to include Howie and Scott.
That comes much later, though.
Yeah, much later, yeah. So this was me, Brock, Jamie, and just the three of us maybe, and then Sarah Rosenau joined to play keys after a little bit. But at the beginning it was just us three.
This is my favorite part of the song.
Yeah, I love the way the lead goes to the palm muted thing.
Yeah. It's so good. Man, I was so stoked when this record came out.
This is interesting. I haven't listened to this in a very, very, very long time. I always forget what a powerful drummer Brock Beckman is. So even when he's taking it easy, he's hitting the drums so hard. Just got too much stuff for his little body.
You said Sarah joined later, but there are keys in this recording.
Then Sarah must be on it. If there's keys in it, then Sarah must be on it. Maybe she joined pretty quickly. So I think it started with me, Brock, and Jamie. We played maybe for a few months and decided we need something else. And somebody somehow got connected with Sarah, who's a really incredible musician and piano player and singer. And both she and Brock ended up quitting at some point. But Brock was just busy. He had other stuff going on. And Sarah started a family and was doing baby stuff. So, yeah.
Man, I when this record came out, I was like Shacker with keys. I was way into it. I think, at this point I'd been listening to the first Shacker records for 7 years, I guess, close to 7 years at that point.
Crazy.
And so when the sleepover came out, I was like, oh, finally. I loved Robot Creep Closer, but the sleepover for me was man, this is Cory Kibler.
Yeah, it was much more circling back to kind of.
This was the kind of songs that I just love from you. These are so good.
It did feel, thank you. It did feel like a natural evolution, kind of. Robot was more of a detour or an experiment, kind of, in a way. It was not like anything else I've done before or since. But it was fun.
No, Robot was fun. But Sleepover felt okay, we're coming home. This feels great. I don't know. I'm not sure. At the time I was driving this souped up Focus, and I had replaced the factory CD player with a MP3 player that you could put CDs in.
Oh, rad.
And I had basically the entire MFR catalog on it. So I could listen to any Mr. Furious release at any time. And the sleepover got regular rotation in that car. There's a lot of miles of Providence traffic.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's cool to hear too, because we never talked about that I remember. Pardon me, at the time. So I had no idea, Rob, that you were such a big fan of the sleepover stuff.
Yeah, I guess we weren't talking a ton during that time, but yeah, I was every release I was still in on.
We weren't. And here's a little something I don't know if I've ever told you, but I don't even think we talked about it in the Fireflies long play, but I tried to mix it and then we shelved it and we were busy, and when I picked it back up, a few years later to try and mix again and was getting somewhere, I felt like I was really pretty nervous to reach out to you, not on the personal level, but with the material. Like, that really felt like opening something that I wasn't sure if you wanted to have opened.
Well, I don't know. It was a period in my late 20s where I was hyper career oriented. So, especially after leaving Providence and going to San Francisco, and I had the full intention of like finding a band when I went to San Francisco, and I spent like 6 months trying to find band members, and the scene was just not there. Like San Francisco was a very different type of music, and it was very, there were a lot of punk bands that were coming through to tour. There were not a lot of punk bands there, and punk was just not the thing to play in San Francisco at that time. So as a consequence, I really just started focusing on, advancing my career in technology. And, I kind of, when you sent the email and we're like, let's put this record out finally, I was like, oh, thank God, I can do something creative and musical. Because as crazy as it was living in San Francisco, and the only good thing about San Francisco is that the shows are terrific. Like, there are a ton of really great venues. The quality of life is terrible. You pay way too much for absolutely everything, and what you get is very, very poor. The housing quality in San Francisco is awful. And the culture, like, just when you go out to get a cup of coffee or get dinner, is like so monolithically oriented around tech. It's suffocating. So when you reached out to put out Fireflies, I was just like, oh, thank God, I have something. It felt like the first injection of oxygen that I had received, since moving there. And I think I'd been there like 6 months or something at the time. And so it was deeply welcome. But and
your response was super positive, and it was such a relief to get it. But yeah, it felt like something to go back and pull that stuff out. I paused the music so we can talk about the golden age a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit, and then give you guys each a chance to talk, and then I want to hear, a little bit of the song. But so the Golden Ages Call Lily EP came out in 2002 or 2003 maybe, and had nothing to do with Mr. Furious. The 2009 just digital re-release, I posted it. Cory had gotten Rob Hawkins' permission to do that. It wasn't online. 2002, 2003 stuff, for younger listeners, that was still like physical media, basically. Someone might rip the MP3s, or you might be like kind of techie and have your MP3s online, but physical media and CDs in particular were dominant. And then by 2009, the mainstream for listening had really shifted. And Cory, in a second, you can kind of speak to anything you remember about being in touch a little bit with Rob Hawkins and getting that to happen. But in 2009, you know, I and speaking for the label was just super honored to, as Cory said in a previous episode, to be a home for this music and to just make it available for people to hear who didn't have access to the CD. I had loved the CD since I first heard it and was just tremendously honored to put it out. And of course now this carries a different kind of weight with Rob Hawkins' death by suicide a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago maybe. And I remain very proud to have played just a tiny, tiny part in making this music available and keeping it available. Again, I had nothing to do with its creation, recording, mixing, mastering. All I've done is a few clicks to make it available for people to hear. And it is breathtaking music. And Rob was a complicated guy. But this EP, Call a Lily by The Golden Age, is kind of a masterpiece, in my opinion. Cory, what do you remember about this?
So you said this CD came out in about 2003. And from what I understand, it was recorded at Presto when Presto was still in Lincoln. And that was sort of like the Saddle Creek recording studio. The Mogis brothers worked there and owned and operated it. And the Golden Age was picking up a lot of steam. And I believe Ian Aiello, who played bass in the Golden Age, among other things, was interning at Presto. So it was a natural thing that they recorded it there. And like you said, it's such an incredible bunch of 4 songs. It got so much love locally, like in Lincoln and Omaha. I wish it were heard by more people, and I'm glad that Mr. Furious is able to let more people hear it. I know a lot of people heard it after the news of Rob was, shared. But it was just really neat. So I ran into Rob. I remember he was working at the Oven, I think, and I just talked to him and I asked him about what he'd done with all the music. And I ended up hanging out with him a few times at his place. It's just a very, very, very sweet, smart, gentle fellow. And he was really gracious to let us put this online along with the unreleased Golden Age full length, which was also really amazing. So, yeah.
Rob Spector?
I was struck because I only heard it when it came out on MFR in 2009.
Yes.
I want to say. And so to discover that its original release was actually like 6 years earlier, because I had no access to that scene at that time. I'd already left the Midwest. That sound is so far ahead of its time. Like, when I think about like bands that I consider to have anticipated a mainstream sound in that way, like Miracle Legion or Four Squirrels, like they're like the band that anticipated the next big thing, but they weren't the next big thing. Even in 2009, I was just like, wow, this sounds like something that's going to be huge. And as we'll hear, I think you totally hear the anticipation of acts like basically every band that was on Fat Cat Records, like Frightened Rabbit and Twilight Sad, and We Were Promised Jetpacks, and like there were, but it's anticipating it by many years. Like it's striking how pioneering this record is when you take it from its original release date in 2003, and to think that came out of, the same scene that we were a part of is really, really breathtaking.
But honestly, breathtaking was just the word that was in my mind like 10 seconds ago. I hadn't heard anything like it. And what I'm gonna do, in the notes, I'm gonna put a gift link to my favorite suicide prevention resource, which is an article in the Washington Post called 6 Questions That Can Stop a Suicide. Maybe you want to look at those questions for yourself. Maybe they'll come in handy if you know someone and you're worried about them. They're very direct, and you can internalize them, or you can take the spirit and learn them and do your own thing with them. But they can really help identify if someone is in danger, or if you are in danger, and so that'll be a free link below. So I'm going to read the credits, and then we'll play the song and hear some, and we can jump in, after a little bit, and we'll carry on. But Cory's right. This was recorded at Presto Recording by Mike Mogus in Lincoln. Rob Hawkins wrote the songs, played guitar and sang. Clint Wheeler on drums. Brandon McKenzie on bass. Nate Mickish on lead guitar. Alyssa Heinzman on keys. Alyssa helped me with those credits in summer 2003. And here's what I wrote. Serenade, the last song on the EP, entered my mind within minutes of Cory telling me that Rob had died. I didn't know Rob personally, but Calla Lily was an enormous musical achievement in the Nebraska scene as I knew it. I've always felt a bit strange about being its digital steward, and now I feel even stranger. But if you're listening to it, that is good. I have chased the lyrical accomplishment of Serenade over and over in my own writing, never getting there. But that's how much this EP, and that song specifically, means to me. I put it on one of the mixtapes I made for my now spouse as the closer. So we're not going to hear Serenade. We're going to hear Euphoria's Ending by Rob Hawkins and the Golden Age. Cory, I was playing back a lot of these songs for my girlfriend and telling her, stories about our little scene in Nebraska, and she just gravitated to the Golden Age probably more than any other band she heard.
Yeah, it's tough to deny. Like when I listen to the Golden Age, I feel the same way that I do when I listen to Derek Ashtray Life: The Return, which is so much joy, and also it's also frustrating that more people didn't hear it. I guess it's a very special, this EP. I mean, I love the Golden Age's full length, but this EP, like, even though they were never officially on Saddle Creek, I feel like this encapsulates and outdoes so much of the stuff that was coming out on that label at the time.
I mean, this guitar tone is Band of Horses, right? Like, you know, like who was the year of, you know, that first record. They were the biggest band in the world at the time, and
but that was to underline your point. But I think Band of Horses was at least 2004, if not 2005.
No, might have been later. What was it? Everything All the Time was the record?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, that was
2006. Yep.
2006. Yeah. Band from LA. You know, recorded at a major studio. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, the Band of Horses record is like quite an achievement, and the story behind it, I think, is amazing. But you know,
yeah, how did they get horses?
The sound that basically everyone would try to imitate for the next 3 years already existed in Nebraska in 2003.
Yeah,
that's wild to me.
Yeah, they did a killer job recording and mixing that record. It's terrific. I think they...
Next up. Oh, go ahead, Cory.
I was just going to say, on the strength of that EP, they got an opening slot on a Rilo Kiley tour, which is pretty cool.
Oh, really? Wow. That is dope. Oh, I love Drive By Honky.
Yeah, more Lincoln legends. Drive By Honky, The Divine Butcher. Similar kind of situation where Mr. Furious, myself, had nothing to do with the recording or original CD release. But Cory, and please tell us, Cory, but you struck up a friendship with Dan Jenkins somehow and convinced him that it would be a good idea to hand over some music.
Yeah, well, we got friendly enough that he probably would have felt bad saying no. No, Dan's really cool. He's very funny and very dry. Like, he's one of those people where I'm never sure whether he's joking, but I think he's pretty much always joking. But
I mean, the band's name is Drive By Honky.
Yeah. And he's great songwriter, awesome singer, and every band he's in rips so hard live. Like, I never saw Drive By Honky. They were done before I started going to Lincoln shows, but then he was in Ideal Cleaners, who were like the tightest rock trio in the history of Lincoln. So, yeah. But he must like me enough, to want to put out the record on Mr. Furious. So I used to bug that poor guy about playing shows with whatever band I was in so much. Like, he put up with because I was like, 24, 25 or whatever. Just, I guess, older. Jesus. Well, it was when I was younger, but anyway. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for letting me play a show with you.
Yeah, I just love the off, like the off time signature chorus. Like, it's so funky.
I want to say Drive By Honky was just two dudes, or at least it was two dudes for a while. It was Dan Jenkins and a guy nicknamed Trout, who I don't know his real name. Mike something, maybe? I don't know. But I think the whisper was that Drive By Honky also had an opportunity to get bigger, but Dan had a family, so I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe cut that part out. Go on to this.
I've never heard that, so I can be the counterpoint. I mean, not that I would necessarily, but I've never heard anything like that. We were together reading in the...
Look at this, Howie with the disco beat.
Doing the disco. That is Matt Pluff from 5 Star Crush and Mars Lights on drums. and me doing basically my best 5-Star Crush impression on this whole album.
Wait,
the other week.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, Rob and I were talking the other week, and he asked about the wah-wah sound on the bass, and that is, it's EQ automation in Pro Tools. So the bass was recorded without the sort of wah or envelope or sweep effect, and that was done later in Pro Tools to make it do that.
Which is,
I interrupted.
For that era of Pro Tools, was extremely hard to do. Like,
I'm sure if you zoomed in today,
easy. These kids don't know. We had to walk to school uphill through 3 feet of snow. These kids don't even remember what snow is.
I'm sure if you zoomed in on that sound today, you could hear like some type of horrible zipper noise aliasing on those fast automation movements. But you know, it all disappears into the vibe, hopefully. Cory, you had a comment?
Yeah. This song, is this There Is Something and Not Nothing?
That's the album, yeah. The song is called The Biggest Choice You Make Every Day.
Yeah. I was just trying to remember what album it was from, but this album was a very distinct era, like sound era. So.
Well, I was asking Howie, is like was this the beginning of the analog synth journey? And it sounded like it was kind of on the bubble.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet. This was all the synth sounds here are the Alesis Micron virtual analog, again, which I used in 5-Star Crush. And the analog thing came much later. Let's see, when did Drew put out the first Dark Satellites album? Excuse me, the first Night Mode album. That wasn't on Mr. Furious. So Drew put out the first Night Mode album, Other, in 2016. So, and then I made the first Night Mode album without analog synths. So I suppose maybe 2017 would be the start of the analog synth journey for me.
It was definitely the first time I felt like you developing this kind of lo-fi sensibility that was so cool.
It was the first time I had done anything synthy, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even in 5-Star Crush, I used a lot of like Rhodesy and DX70. I mean, DX7 is digital, but electric piano sounds and an analog style lead sounds. But it was the first time I'd ever done like synthy songs, as opposed to like just a little decoration or something. We're listening to White Air, which is a Greg Joyce basically solo project. Cory, this is another one of your friends that you kind of brought into the family.
So, yes, so Greg Joyce, he was the one who played drums in Crush the Clown, and then was a primary songwriter, but also guitarist in Strawberry Burns. And then eventually Greg and Jarrett Colavetti from Crush the Clown joined with me and Jamie to create demos. That's what happened. But Greg he plays drums in demos, and he writes a song or two, but he's a really terrific pop songwriter, and he's got that weirdo 90s sensibility, like the same kind of weirdness you get from like a Pavement or a Ween, but still like I don't know. It's in that same vein. There was like a very specific sort of bunch of bands like that were, you know, pop or rock and roll or whatever, but just had something weird going on all the time, which I love. And he likes to play around with production and stuff too. Like purposeful dissonance, a lot of that. You know?
Yeah, the way this chorus resolves is so rad. Like the verse is so dissonant, and then it resolves into this kind of majestic.
Yeah,
like
totally.
That's a good word.
Resolution is so cool. I love this song.
It's good. He likes to layer vocals a lot too. The first time I heard this was probably when Mr. Furious released it, or if Howie sent me some tracks beforehand before it released. But like when Greg's released stuff, sometimes he'll do that February album writing month or whatever. And it's kind of cool to just hear what he's kind of working on, and then he will kick it out. And I don't know, he's a really prolific songwriter as well. Like he's always got something cooking.
So you hadn't heard this? You just kind of told him to send it to me or something?
So I'd heard his solo music. Like I remember he played us some demos that he had. I mean, they were quote unquote demos, but he'd already kind of mixed them already, and they sounded great. And I was like, "What are you gonna do with these?" And he's like, "I don't know. I have no idea. I guess just burn CDs or whatever." So I think that's how I got you hooked up with him.
I had an idea of love as something.
Oh.
Yeah, Cory, it's really good that
we're.
it's good that we're doing this with you, because so much of this era has to do, it's like wrapped up with you in the Lincoln scene.
Right.
But this is from the Songwriter Power Ranger thing. So I remembered that was a concert series you were doing. These recordings are from you took some artists who had been in the concert series, and you did a set on the college radio station at UNL. So these aren't concert recordings, they're live on the radio recordings, but
Yes.
the Songwriter Power Ranger concept was mainly about shows that you were curating.
Yes. So this is Ember Schrag, and she and I booked together the Songwriter Power Ranger, and it was every Tuesday at Box Awesome when it was still around. And we eventually moved it to the Bourbon when the Box Awesome guy, Jeremiah, bought the Bourbon. But I remember seeing Ember live and just being so blown away by how good her songs were and how I hadn't heard of her. I was like, how have I not heard of her? She was so good. And so, if nothing else, it was sometimes tough to get people to the shows, and it's tough to get people signed up to them, although we got some really good ones. But if nothing else, it was awesome to have a venue where more people heard more of her songs, because either one or both of us would fill in when we couldn't stack the bill that high, you know? So, yeah, she's a wonderful songwriter.
Yeah, and on the EP, we have 2 songs each from Ember, you, Manny Coon, and those are my favorite 2 Manny Coon recordings ever.
Yeah.
And the legendary Lori Allison from the Millions.
We got a terrific lineup that night. I think it actually might have been on KZUM, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was really cool to be a part of. Like, it's interesting to look back and see all these experiences that just pure elbow grease brought me. Like, nobody else wanted to book a Tuesday night songwriter show. But I did it, and I got to, like, play a show with Jake Bello, Neva Denova. That was awesome.
Oh, wow.
We got Darren to play some cool stuff. A bunch of other, Darren Keane, from Shows the Rainbow, because his solo music is awesome, like guitar music. And I learned about a ton of other local songwriters that I had no idea about. So to have us 2, and then Manny Coon, who's so good, and Lori Allison, who's, right, she's in the Millions and she's been around for forever, is a big deal.
You just reminded me, I have a crazy Jake Bellows story.
Oh.
It's not that crazy, but there was and I can't even remember, so many of the details are gone. Rob, you would remember this game. He was into EverQuest.
Oh yeah, that was very big when we were in college. Yeah.
And that's like the one, I can't remember his name. That's the one defining characteristic I can remember about him. I don't remember how I met him.
You know who else was into EverQuest? Kurt Schilling of the Red Sox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so Jake Bellows was into EverQuest?
No, this isn't Jake.
Okay.
This is a guy whose name I can't remember, and I can't remember what context I know him in. But there was this one, I was probably a senior in high school. There was this one afternoon, I was in Lincoln. I was at the shoe store, and I met Eric, who ended up being in JV All-Stars.
Oh, well.
And they needed a drummer. This was before JV All-Stars. He was playing in his grandma's basement in Milford with a guitarist, and they needed a drummer. And I was like, well, I'll come play drums in Milford. That'll be fun. And on the same day, somehow the dude who liked EverQuest knew Jake Bellows. And I had been being the guitar guy around the EverQuest guy, and I had played my kind of sketchy version of Chris Cornell's Sun Shower from the Great Expectations soundtrack, which is a phenomenal song.
Also a deep cut.
Yeah.
Deep cut. Kind of impossible to play on one guitar, but I tried. And EverQuest dude thought this was the most incredible thing he'd ever seen. Took me to Jake Bellows' place and had me play Sun Shower for Jake Bellows. And like, there was talk of me joining Neva Denova, who were nobody at that point. I mean, they were, It was just dudes in a basement. So, and then I went to Milford and played drums for Eric. And it was like one of the greatest days of my life. I was like, I joined 2 bands today. I was telling my girlfriend at the time. Like, I was so excited about all these bands I was joining. Never saw Jake again. Played for like 6 months in Milford with Eric, which was awesome and fun. We never played a show. There were these kids who would bring over like leftover Casey's Pizza at the end of the night, and we'd play a mixed set of originals and like MXPX covers. And that lasted for like 6 months, and it was fun. But then Eric met up with Nick, and like JVA started, and the grandma basement thing stopped happening. And that went very well for them, obviously. I anyone who doesn't know, I fucking love JV All-Stars, so
you definitely do.
Eric made the right decision, is what I'm saying, but we had some fun.
Did you guys have a band name?
Not really, but the one we were kicking around was Lunchbox.
That is the most late 90s, early 2000s. Oh my god. Love it.
I'm sorry, I told my whole story over Panda Face's I See Something, who's Brandon McKenzie from the Golden Age recording we heard earlier.
Yes. Yeah, so he went on tour with the Golden Age and Rilo Kiley. Like, it's so interesting to talk to someone like him about that experience, or like Nick Westra from Crush the Clown was in head of Femur for a while, and he got to tour with Wilco, opened up for Wilco all over the country. So,
oh my God, wow.
Interesting to talk to because I never had an experience like that. So it's fun to live vicariously, but his Panda Face stuff is awesome.
This is about the time of the big Rilo Kiley
huge
break, right? Yeah.
Huge. Wow. They were huge.
Yeah. Panda Face is
so yeah, we gave Panda Face a little bit of short shrift on the pause just briefly again, but yeah, Brandon also from Blaine was a solo project of his.
That's right.
And he's in Strawberry Burns, of course. So super accomplished, kind of low key, under the radar Lincoln legend. But played on some great stuff. We're gonna hear another song from the Golden Age. I want to give some context. So this is that sort of full album that Cory mentioned earlier. that you got from Rob Hawkins and got. I remember the emails, and they were the shortest of emails giving us permission to post this, but we did get the permission. But I haven't heard anything from Ian Aiello, and I should check in with him. Maybe I'll send him an email and see if I can get something into the show notes for this. But as of summer fall 2023, Ian was working with all of Rob's recordings and remixing, and there were plans to do a more official release of at least the material that's on the self-titled The Golden Age record that's up on Mr. Furious still. Ian said it was okay to leave what we had up, but not to do anything more with it at this time. So there were plans. I hope there's still plans. I don't necessarily expect to be involved in any way, but if there's anything I can do for Rob's music, of course I want to do it, and for Ian, just to help Ian out. So that's where we stand. A lot of kind of unknowns with Rob's musical legacy, but for now we can enjoy Behind Your Knees off the self-titled LP, which is a little more varied than Kala Lily, which is there's a very unified kind of vision and sound behind it. This is, Rob, to answer your selection question, I mean, this is my favorite song off of the self-titled, and no coincidence that it's the most Kala Lily sounding of the self-titled material.
It was definitely a departure, and for me, this record is like supremely personal because I will always associate it with moving to New York, and and all the craziness, getting all your stuff across the country and moving from California to New York, and the thing that was in my ears. I remember I was listening to this record one day. I had thrown my back out.
Oh no.
And so my back is like spasming, like out of control. I'm like in absolute agony. And I had 17 appointments for looking at an apartment in New York that day. So I'm like doing all these like walk-ups and like trying to find like where I'm going to live, and the clock's ticking. It's I don't have a great window of opportunity. And this break in particular, I remember hearing. A lot. I just needed something centering, and this record was so critical during that period.
Centering is a great word because, I mean, to put on the music theory hat for a second, the little Rhodesy kind of part, oh my God, it's just going up and down a major scale.
Yeah.
Just stepping up and down. Da, 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 da. I guess there's a little jump there.
And then you
and
get
yet,
that thing in the back.
It's so perfect.
The layers are. It reminds me a lot of Sigur Rós in a lot of ways with the layering.
Yeah.
I can hear that.
Yeah.
That's where that is a connection I would not have made without you bringing it up.
I mean, later Sigur Rós, like Hawk era or after.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely the best song on the record too. Like it was an excellent choice for this comp.
I love it sounds really nothing like Calla Lily, but I love Lucky You.
I do too.
Yeah. What's the other one? Dirty Fighter is the first one on the record, I'm pretty sure, but Lucky
Opening
You is
track,
great.
yeah.
I played a show with the Golden Age when I was at grad school, and they played Lucky You as the last song. And Boz Hicks, who was drumming for them at the time, he's also the drummer in Her Flyaway Manor. He was clinking his drumstick on a bar glass like it was an a cappella kind of deal. And he shattered the glass and it went everywhere during the song. But they finished it out, and I'm pretty sure I got, at least $16 from playing that show.
Wow.
Oh.
Prince's Ransom. Can we talk about the sequencing here? I love that we go from that to a rocker.
Same.
Yeah.
Mr. Furious is all about the contrast, right? The salty and the sweet, the coffee and the cherry pie.
I think it was needed.
Yeah, you can't follow up Behind Your Knees with like more of the same, because it will not live up to it. So you gotta zig. This is a song of mine from a album of songs that are mostly cowboy steampunk fiction, with like real characters and story, like concept album. But in this particular case, I used a real story that my grandmother lived through as a way to introduce the whole thing, including one of the main characters. So my granddad was an electrician, and for this story, he was out in Wyoming on a job, and the families of the workers were living in tents, and there was a huge thunderstorm, and my grandma literally had to hang on to the stake in the center of the tent to hold the tent to the ground so the tent and the family didn't blow away.
Pork chop sandwiches.
I don't know that reference.
It's not good. It's not good. Oh.
It wasn't near Dudley. I did change the town for prosody reasons.
Was this the first song on the record?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this right here is the You Have to Wear the Boots motive for the whole album, which is the chromatic. In this case, it's F, E, G, F sharp. So those four chromatic notes in that sequence appear in many of the songs. I'm actually thinking I might, if you liked the I don't know if either of you listened to the podcast I did a couple weeks ago, solo podcast about the bass line and like writing the bass line for one of the songs on Jam My Wave. I think I'll do one of those style for that motive on this record and like go through every example where this theme happens. I think I was gonna do I have all my notes written for a blog post, but no one reads the blog, and I think the pod is actually the better format because you can hear it.
Is this the third MS Ride record or the fourth?
Fourth, at least the fourth, because there's Don't Let Them Take Us Alive, It's a Trap.
Yeah.
There's Something and Not Nothing, and now You Have to Wear the Boots.
Got it.
Unless I'm forgetting one in there.
Where's Be a Ska Rat? Or is that a different project?
That is much, much earlier, and that is technically Echoes or Tape Echoes.
Okay.
Name.
All right, coming back to Panda Face. I love
Back
this.
to Panda Face.
Yeah,
Excellent Panda Face track.
All those dudes in Strawberry Burns are such good, like pop songwriters with a little like moodiness and dissonance thrown in there.
Hmm. And you had a Strawberry Burns release, right? Howie?
Did we?
Yeah, Pitch Purple.
Oh yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, Brandon is such a sweet fellow, really good at music, but also just a very kind guy. I remember when I just moved back to Lincoln after college. Like, I lived in Ventura again for about 8 months, moved back, and set up a solo show with Brandon at Meadowlark Coffee. And we played, and it was probably to 20, 25 people maybe. And afterward, I was like, talking with him, and I'm like, yeah, let's rule the music scene or whatever. And he was like, yeah, we'll take over the world. Like, he was very sweet about kind of humoring me on that. I think by that time he was like, okay, I'm probably not gonna end up on MTV or something like that. But it was really good. It was really good. Like, he's just someone who has always done it just for the love of the tunes.
And ironically, this song would work on MTV.
I
think
know.
in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
Rob, to jump back a second, Strawberry Burns, Pitch Purple, Mr. Furious Catalog 41. It'll be in the next section of the celebration.
I remember hearing it, but I think that was the only Strawberry Burns record I heard.
I like all their stuff, especially I think it's worth going back and listening to the older stuff.
Totally. So Strawberry Burns was Brock Beckman, Greg Joyce, Brandon McKenzie, and Pat Clinch, who played bass. Pat Clinch sadly died in 2015 from pancreatic cancer. But they were able to record a final record right before Patrick passed, which is awesome. It was called Mothhawk.
Wow.
And then after Pat Clinch died, then the remaining three members hooked up with a guy named Dan and called the band Mothhawk. So they're still playing. And even though it's an evolution, it's very similar to, it's got the same vibe, to Strawberry Burns.
Got it.
There's also a cool Pat Clinch compilation that I'll link to with a bunch of Lincoln bands.
Cory, can you describe what the Lincoln scene was like at this time?
Oh man, to me it was really exciting. It felt like a lot of the bands locally, from anywhere from 2005 to 2013 or 14 or whatever, it felt like there were a lot of Lincoln bands right on the cusp of something pretty big. And there were a few that kind of got there or almost got there, but it meant that there were just a lot of really good bands going on, and it felt like kindly competitive or something like that. But there was just a great, fantastic shows going on every night of the week.
Wow.
It was cool. It was fun to be a part of it.
Well, it sounds to me like it was a much better scene than when we were in undergrad, right? It's when we were in undergrad, it was everyone was playing nu metal, everyone was a Korn sounded like, and some of them were good. Blacklight Sunshine was legitimately a good band, right? But it was that sound, and we were not that sound at all.
I do think that a band like Shacker came, if the goal was to get popular, we probably were the right band at the wrong time, maybe. I think
Totally.
that power pop alternative kind of was a little, I don't know, whatever. But
I felt like for all of us, like 7 years before or 7 years later, it would have been amazing. But at the time, we're, with this is White Air, right?
Yeah, White Air, Breathe In. So another Greg track.
Yeah, so this is like 2010, 2011. This sounds great.
Yeah, he's got that like psychedelic pop thing going on. Greg loves the psychedelic pop production.
That limp in is so good.
And right, like Howie and like you, Rob, I think Greg just plays everything on his songs, and he loves like playing bass, and he's a drummer. He's one of those drummers that does a really good job of naturally modulating the tempo through a song, but in a really organic way, so it totally makes sense when it happens. And he's got a great voice, but I love that he does like a lot of layers and harmonies and stuff. He's able to do that without making it sound too busy.
The best drummers are songwriters. I have said that ever since I met Howie Howard. The best drummers are songwriters.
Back to the scene. I kind of feel like, 2002, 3, 4. The only band that would even touch an acoustic guitar that had success, it was that band from Texas with the, like, every song was about mental health and not coping.
ZZ Top?
No.
Sorry.
No, it's the one with the violin player, right?
Yes, with the violin player.
Yeah, Blue October.
Blue October, thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They had an acoustic guitar on some of the songs and were huge in Lincoln at the time.
They were.
But other than that, like, acoustic guitars were completely relegated to like coffee houses and songwriter. Like, acoustic guitar and Knickerbockers, absolutely not. You're going nowhere.
Megan Cory, Ghost Rider.
That's so funny. That's so true, man. There were so many
there's so many new metal bands
punk
at the
bands
time,
or whatever going on,
and punk. A lot of good punk.
Lots of punk.
I mean,
lots of like
JVA, Straight Outta Junior High, Eighth Wave, punk and ska. Lots of good stuff in that area.
Well, there was what's the band? The Anchondo. They were not bad.
Oh yeah,
Anchondo. They were really fun and kind of unique. When those songs come up in my shuffle, great. Yeah, I like that.
It was a great show.
I saw them in Council Bluffs once, and the bassist insisted on playing barefoot. It was at this kind of weird venue. I get it now, but it was at this kind of weird, like, all ages venue where when you paid at the door and you told the door person which bands to give your money to, and you could split, but like, you could be like, okay, my money goes into these two bands' pot, but not the third band.
Wait. Was this in Council Bluffs, you said?
Yeah.
There's a place called Rebels.
Okay. I don't remember the name, but that
is what we played there. Shacker played there one time. Remember, it was like a spiritual, so you weren't allowed to swear in there. And it was like, right, you gave the money to the band you wanted, but it was a weird deal.
That feels right. I saw Enshando there. They put on a great show.
Yeah. It was like a teen Christian motorcycle themed club.
Yeah, I remember the rhythm guitarist would just spin constantly while doing upstrokes on the guitar, but he was spinning like he was a top.
I would vomit
the entire song. I almost vomited. I was in the crowd.
Yeah.
I was like, how is this dude maintaining like verticalness right now?
And Shondo.
I wonder if they're on Spotify. I'll look that up.
They gotta be.
I'm guessing so. Someone kept track of all that stuff.
Kept it going. What was the name of their label? Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Is it Sucker Punch? Yeah.
What?
I know, baby.
Do you like Dags?
Do you like Dags? Dags. Do you like Dags?
I love dogs. I should probably be done soon anyway. You could,
we should wrap this up.
but
This is
Jesus Christ, they're on Spotify. I'm gonna mute right now. Good night.
Good night, Cory. A fitting end to being roughly halfway through the celebration.
Dude.
It'll continue.
What a bunch of great bands. Like,
it's pretty cool, right? Like,
yeah, truly this
it's pretty cool.
Was really, really incredible. Like, looking back at the body of work, it's just staggering that, you know, what is, I think you would probably you tell me, Howie, but it feels like the label's second act at this point, solidly.
Yeah, if second or potentially third, but definitely second at least.
Well, it's the period where the label is like solidly not depending on any sort of institutional support. Like we're fully beyond, you know, doing college shows or anything like that. Like, everything is, you know, we're all in our late 20s, like trying to find our feet as adult artists.
Yeah, I think so. I'm scanning the track list of Mr. Signal, and I definitely think you could draw a line. So we get everything launched, and we're doing releases of people we know, and I think you can definitely draw a line somewhere around the first Robot Creep Closer EP, catalog 16. And then, to me, this second act, it has a lot to, I mean, I'm doing my thing. It has a lot to do with Cory and Cory's time, like, deep in the Lincoln scene.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's framing a lot of this. And I mean, that's what you've heard tonight for the most part. And then what's going to happen next is I'm going to connect with Drew.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a complete, and continues to be, honestly, like a completely transformative, creative, and personal relationship. You know, Drew, obviously, you guys know this. Anyone who knows anything about the label knows this. But I mean, Drew stands with like U2 and Scott. Kind of is like the huge. I don't know if I'm gravitationally orbiting around you or there's a 3-body problem that's a 5-body problem in gravitational terms, but just a really important relationship in my life, and so we'll start to hear that. Cory's in the next kind of set of releases. Cory's transitioning to a different phase of his life. Moving away from Lincoln for a time. So there's definitely like a phase 3 somewhere in all of that. But yeah, no, we'll get to that probably in April or something like that. But all this stuff for the listeners, if you're still listening, thank you. All this stuff you can grab at mrfuriousrecords.bandcamp.com. The compilation's called Mr. Signal. If you want to listen to the individual releases, go to mrfuriousrecords.com. There's a music section. Everything is there in reverse chronological order. So for this particular stuff, you'll go back to page 4 or 5. I'll put a link directly to the page that covers the most of it in the description. And you can get the direct either Bandcamp streaming or Internet Archive. You know, the old Internet Archive links are all still there, continuously available since September 2004. Thanks to the Internet Archive. I'm a donor.
Hey, I love the Internet Archive. They're the heroes.
We love the Internet Archive and their Wayback Machine and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's time to say goodnight. Thank you both. And listeners, we'll see you next week on Dat Fury Radio. I think... I can't remember the schedule, but I'm talking to Stick Figure soon, and that's going to be fun.
It's going to be sick!
So you'll definitely want to get subscribed on whatever platform you like.
Smash that subscribe button. Like,
Donor
comment, subscribe.
just met her. Oh, man, you guys get it?
And we're out.
Bye, tiny babies.